They making war plans over group chat? I don't even make weekend plans over group chat. Hey, shout out to all of the subscribers and members here on the channel. My name is Reese Waters, and I'm troubled. So, you guys remember Pete Hegseth?
Mr. Secretary, why did you select an underqualified retired lieutenant general to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Given that
I'm going to choose to reject your unqualified question.
Yeah, that's definitely him. He's also the guy who we generally regard as the most unqualified Secretary of Defense we have ever had. The same one who has made a point through various purges over the course of the last couple of months, in addition to a pullback of recruitment, all things that I will get into to make DEI, making sure that they have the best and brightest. God forbid we get weighed down by any of these brown people or women. He has made sure that they have the best and brightest in the Pentagon. Now take Pete Hegseth and you guys, you remember Marco Rubio? Yeah, Marco Rubio. He's the guy who tried to sink into the couch during the Zelensky Trump tiff, and he probably would have succeeded if he didn't think that J.D. Vance was going to find him there. Yes, he's our Secretary of State, a department where he oversees in Darren Beatty, the man who very proudly said that competent white men must be in charge. So why don't we, why don't we go check and see what the competent white men are up to?
Astonishing new reporting today showing just how lax Trump's top national security advisors have been with classified information, allowing a journalist a front row seat to real-time military planning. Atlantic writer Jeffrey Goldberg details how Trump's own national security advisor, Michael Waltz, added Goldberg to a group chat on the messaging app Signal. The chat included Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio as they planned an attack on Houthi-rebels.
Ah, that's right. I forgot about J.D. Vance. Yeah, that is the guy who is so willing to toe the company line. He'll throw his own wife under the bus. Oh yeah, this should be good.
Goldberg writes this, quote, "The world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern time on March 15th that the United States was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing." Goldberg's reporting contains back and forth between these cabinet-level officials as they lay out possible plans of attack, including that J.D. Vance considered Trump ill-informed on potential political fallout.
How about that? It wouldn't be the first time that J.D. Vance would have considered Trump ill-informed. Now, would it? That kind of tracks. That kind of tracks. And the fact that he was so willing to put it out openly to other top officials don't sound like there was much objection to Trump being ill-informed, does it? No. They didn't kick him out the chat on nothing.
Also notable, what Goldberg himself held back to avoid jeopardizing national security. Goldberg writing, quote, "At 11:44 a.m., the account labeled Pete Hegseth posted in Signal a team update. I will not quote from this update or from certain other subsequent texts. The information contained in them, if they had been read by an adversary of the United States, could conceivably have been used to harm American military and intelligence personnel, particularly in the broader Middle East Central Command's area of responsibility. What I will say in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of this Signal conversation is that the Hegseth post contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing.
Now let's keep that in mind not only was there sensitive information that was being passed on this particular chat, but the journalist took it upon himself to hold back printing said information. So just so we're clear, the journalist is being more protective of the classified information than any of the other people that are in the chat, specifically Pete Hegseth, the best and brightest.
We will have the best and brightest in every position possible.
The best and brightest.
Chillingly, Goldberg's presence in the group chat went completely undetected by its members. They were only made aware when Goldberg reached out before the story went to print.
Now that one blew me. I mean, cause we all know when somebody quiet in a group chat. You know what I mean? We all know when somebody in the group chat, they ain't said nothing. You know, the only decent thing to do would be like, hey, is Ray all right? Huh? Anybody want to check on Ray? His wife got his phone? So she been watching all this. Man. Well, it's a good thing we're using Signal. Yeah, it's a good thing we're using Signal, because I was going to send emails like Hillary Clinton, but I decided to use Signal so that way we protect it. And while we're on the topic, I got to give Mr. Goldberg props for staying in the group chat, period. I mean, really. There is not a group chat interesting enough for me to keep tabs on it if I don't feel like I was meant to be there. I don't care what y'all talking about. Unless it's fisticuffs somewhere, then I look.
A spokesman for the National Security Council confirming the authenticity of the messages, quote, "This appears to be an authentic message chain, and we are reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain." Brian Hughes, the spokesman for the National Security Council, said.
Now let's just run that back one more time, verifying the authenticity of the messages. Let's just go ahead and run that back.
A spokesman for the National Security Council confirming the authenticity of the messages, quote, "This appears to be an authentic message chain, and we are reviewing how an inadvertent number was added to the chain."
Remember that.
The way it happens is in a skiff. What a skiff is, it's so secure that you can't bring your cell phone, you can't bring AirPods, you can't bring any electronic device. You have to take off your Apple Watch, because information that is discussed in a skiff is secure and safe and protected.
Oh, I've heard about the skiff. I have heard about the skiff. I have known friends to work on the skiff, and I can't even solidify weekend plans because they're on the skiff and they don't have access to any of their electronics. So I can't get confirmation whether 8 months is too late to bring his daughter's birthday present, but we can discuss all of this just on the open. Got it.
That is how this information should travel. Any of these people have access to skiffs. Any of them could go to a staffer and say, I need to have a secure call.
Don't they have them in their homes?
They have them in their homes. But the vice president who was on there could have said to a staffer, I need to do a secure call to let my views be known about a national security issue. They didn't choose to do that. As Senator Duckworth just said, no one posed any opposition to this.
And how about this one? While we're on the topic, who discussing war plans over the group chat? You know what I mean? Who discussing war plans over the group chat? There are some things that you need to have, some conversations you need to have in person. Some conversations are too sensitive for the group chat. Keep in mind, I have conversations that are too sensitive for the group chat, and I make videos. I'm guessing Pete Hegseth has some conversations that are too sensitive for the group chat. You know what I mean? I'm guessing that J.D. Vance has some conversations too sensitive for the group chat. If I, in the last week, have said no more than 5 times, oh, let me not text this. Let me make sure that we have this conversation in person or over the phone, because I don't want this to look wrong, but not war plans.
And the reason it's so important is because there are so many adversaries out there who want access to this type of information. Adversaries who might have told the Houthis there's going to be an attack. There's details about the timing of it. This is what Jeffrey Goldberg said to me earlier today. The timing of it, operational details, who they were targeting, that was all in this group chat, right? they could have shared that with them. It could have prevented the operation from taking place. Who knows what other Signal chats they've had. This is information that could put people's lives at risk. It could put operations at risk that keep people safe. Can I make one other point? Because I don't think it's received enough attention and generally.
I'll tell you what hasn't received enough attention. Who wasn't on the group chat? Who wasn't on the group chat? Because somebody was important enough to be on the Signal chat where we making war plans that didn't know nothing. And apparently that went completely unnoticed for this entire time. That's how much coordination we got going on in the Trump administration. You got somebody that was supposed to be in the war group chat, didn't know nothing, and it wasn't apparent. That's how much, you know what I mean? That's how much coordination we got going on right now. That's like me being left off of the PTA group chat. You know what I mean? Nobody would know. No, because I ain't gonna look at it. Nobody would know. That's what we have going on at the top of the administration. And how about this fact? If you aren't going to do any more checking, if you aren't going to be any more secure than who's in the group chat, you are damn lucky that was an Atlantic writer. That you are damn lucky that was an Atlantic writer. I mean, it could have been a right-wing influencer for all we know, and all that stuff would have been public beforehand. They don't keep nothing quiet.
The CIA director seems to have shared the name of a covert operative who Jeffrey Goldberg had the wisdom from having covered national security issues for decades not to share in his reporting. The CIA director shared it on a group chat with people who probably didn't know the name of that person. Some of them may not have. That's concerning, dangerous, and should be alarming to people.
It should be. But meanwhile, on Fox News...
And listen, I mean, we don't know how much of this is accurate or not, but it looks like even if everything the Atlantic reported is true, it's the president's advisors discussing among themselves options they might recommend to the president. And nobody can deny the success of what the president is doing here, which is what Pete Hegseth just underscored. And this is what the leftist media is reduced to. They can't argue with the policies, which the American people support. They can't argue with this new demonstration of American strength that is keeping Americans safe at home and abroad. And so now we're griping about who's on a text message and who's not. I mean, come on.
We will have the best and brightest.
You know what? Oh, they got him in the comments? And if you think they got caught lacking the first time that they discussed this kind of sensitive information over Signal, well, I got a whole basket of uneven and mismatch and misprinted Reese Waters merch that I can unload just for you at a really good price. You know, the stuff that be on the floor at Marshall's. Signal is an encrypted messaging app that's popular around the world, including among journalists and government officials. Biden administration officials also routinely use it to discuss logistical planning for meetings and at times to communicate with foreign counterparts. But the use of Signal to discuss planning for military operations among the most closely guarded secrets in the United States has, in part because of the potential impact on American service members' lives, is a shocking risk to national security, current and former officials have all said. Multiple officials said they could recall no instance in which Signal was used to communicate classified information or discuss military operations. They broke every procedure known to man about protecting operational material before a military strike, said a former senior intelligence official. You have a total breakdown in security about a military operation. A report last month from a Google-owned security firm found Russian-linked spies tried to break into the Signal accounts of Ukrainian military personnel by posing as trusted Signal contacts. See, that's where they got it wrong. Yeah, if they would have posed as journalists, you know what I mean? Just wait till you get plucked up. You end up in one of them chats. For now, Trump has given no indication that he plans to fire anyone over the matter. He expressed surprise when asked about the story, telling reporters Monday afternoon, "I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it." Now, a couple of things. Doesn't surprise me at all. He has no plans to fire anybody over this because he has seen the headshots of everybody who was in on the call. Yeah, there's not really a, you know what I mean? There's not a immediate fault. Unless you wanted to go Tulsi Gabbard. And I'll be honest, I stand up for women, but I would not object. You can have that one. You can have that one for free, Trump. I'll go ahead and give you that one. But how about the fact that somehow, because your people,
We will have the best and brightest,
included a writer by mistake in having a conversation they weren't supposed to be having on a platform they weren't supposed to be using, you attack the Atlantic. You attack the publication, the same one, mind you, that protected the sensitive information that Pete Hegseth wouldn't. America.
Mr. President, your reaction to the story in The Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine.
You know what? Now that I hear him say it, I think I get the confusion. He said he doesn't think the Atlantic is much of a magazine because I think they think that it's a security organization. You know what I mean? I think he's confused. He doesn't know that it's a magazine. He thinks that it is a security organization or maybe a department within the cabinet, and that's how he ended up in the group chat.
we will have the best and brightest.
Yeah, that makes as much sense as taking all this information and attacking the Atlantic. I tell you that.
But I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
Having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
with the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis?
Right.
Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
I don't know nothing about nothing. Yeah, I don't know nothing about nothing. You know, people be, executive orders be crossing my desk. Oh, is that for Enemy Aliens Act of 1700? I don't be knowing, you know what I mean? I just came to spend my final chapter in our nation's capital in peace. I just came to the mall. I just wanted to see the museums because I know that all Smithsonians are free. So this is a very cost-effective vacation for me and my family. That's all, that's it and that's all. Like I all this stuff with but I take credit for the good stuff.
It's typical Trump. All bluster, very little substance. He talks a tough game, but then when pressed on it, he's an armchair tough guy. I hate to say it, but this is a guy who said that John McCain is not a war hero, yet he sought his own 5 military deferments.
That's right. We haven't heard from Pete now, have we?
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning, and you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans. And that's all I have to say about that.
Right,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The NSC said it was authentic.
Huh? Oh, Brit Hume went in? Oh, for God's sake, the administration has already confirmed the authenticity of the message from Brit Hume. You gotta love that Fox on Fox violence. I love some good Fox on Fox violence. There's a reason why I ran that back. The confirmation of the authenticity of the messages. And Pete Hegseth, who not only is involved in these kind of conversations on a platform he's not supposed to be on, sharing sensitive classified information to people who don't have access to that kind of information.
We will have the best and brightest.
Apparently, he's not even reading the basic emails that tell him what they have and have not confirmed. He must have been on Signal. Yeah, he must have been on Signal. He didn't get a chance to read. He must have a whole gang of group chats. Yeah, he must have a whole gang of group chats going on because he didn't get a chance to get to his email at all. And I'll be totally honest. I think that this is a first for me. I appreciate Donald Trump for this one thing. When you watch his followers and sycophants try and do Trump, when you watch them try and imitate Trump, never take accountability for anything, always attack people when you could possibly be held to account or when you're clearly at fault, they're so bad at it. They're so bad at it. My goodness, at least he's good at the truth grift. This is the worst Trump impersonation I have seen since Kristi Noem. And that's saying something.
Did you meet Kim Jong-un?
Well, as soon as this was brought to my attention, I certainly made some changes and looked at this passage. And I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. As soon as it was brought to my attention, we went forward and have made some edits. So I'm glad that this book is being released in a couple of days and that those edits will be in place and that people will have the updated version.
So you did not meet with Kim Jong-un. That's what you're saying.
I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I think I've talked extensively in this book about my time serving in Congress, my time as governor, before governor, some of the travels that I've had. I'm not going to talk about my specific meetings with world leaders. I'm just not going to do that.
Jeffrey Goldberg, clean them up for me, would you?
The unreality of it, I think, is something that's very hard to capture. I have a hard time explaining the unreality of it because, as you note, you've been on one side of that divide. I've been on the other. The national security world is a pretty serious world, and especially at the level below the principals, there are people who take their responsibilities extremely seriously and take security and safety and cybersecurity and digital security very, very seriously. And there are people, we both know of people who've gone to prison for mishandling sensitive information. And so, one of my problems, and I've been, asked this question a few times today, it's why did you have such a hard time believing this? And the answer is because it's unbelievable. I mean, I've never experienced this through, the pre-9/11 period, 9/11, Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on. These are life and death issues, and you don't just put out specific targeting information, specific timings of attacks that have not yet taken place into a commercial messaging app.
Here's a question. And it's a legitimate question. Because we get all sorts of spam all the time. I be complaining about it all the time. I think I got offered 4 paralegal jobs today. We get all sorts of spam, right? If you were included in that group chat, would you have thought it was real? That's a legitimate question. That's a legitimate question. Because we get all sorts of spam right now. So I ignore a lot of things that I get included in unsolicited. We're talking about national security secrets right now. We're talking about war. We're talking about huge holes in our comfort and security as Americans. But on the other hand, could you honestly say that the Trump administration is too competent? Are these white men too competent to have done something like this? Woo! I don't know. You know what I mean? Woo! Like if I got a text from J.D. Vance asking me what they should do with the Department of Education tomorrow, it doesn't feel real, but can you honestly say that's something they wouldn't do?
We will have the best and brightest.
And so I obviously convinced myself, as I state in the story, that this was a disinformation operation of some kind. Somebody, a state actor, non-state actor, I don't know who.
We're trying to entrap you.
We're trying to entrap me or fool me, or I couldn't figure out what the actual motive was. That was the one of the hard parts. But I wanted to understand, what was going on here. At the end of the day, the most obvious explanation that it's just real was, for most of the time I was following this, the most improbable, because I'd never seen senior government officials act this way.
That's why it's so hard to answer that question. You know what I mean? That is exactly. There's a whole lot that we have seen, definitely in the last month, but really there's a whole lot that if you would have said, could that, I would be like, nah, that ain't real. Every day I open up the internet and I see a headline, I'm like, nah, that ain't real. Only to see it come out of the president's mouth. So, you know what I mean?
There was also, John Radcliffe, who has been in government before, who has had access to national security before. He was on this chain, director of the CIA. He shared, reportedly, according to your reporting, the details of someone you didn't name because you know well enough not to share information like this, of somebody who was sounded like a covert operative.
So what happened at the beginning of this chain was the principals, the cabinet level people, were asked by Mike Waltz, who is going to be your point of contact in the next 72 hours when we move toward a strike against the Houthis, right? I'm reading this and I'm like, they're really talking about a strike against the Houthis. Radcliffe names, other people name other people who are publicly named public figures. Radcliffe names a person. I'm not going to say the name. The whole real name of this person, who is going to be his liaison. In the course of my reporting and trying to understand, I came to understand that this is an active CIA officer. His name has never been in public before, who is
everyone on the chain may not have had need to know who this person was.
Well, yeah, because remember, the chain is pretty big. The chain is not just 5 intelligence officials or 4 defense officials. It's defense, intelligence, treasury. It's the chief of staff of the White House. It's people who certainly don't need to know the names. As you know from the classified world, from the secret world, the less you know, the better. Right, the less you have to go to sleep with at night, the better off you are in many ways. You can't get into trouble from not knowing something that you shouldn't know. And so I have to say, somewhat astonished that he would put this official's name into what is essentially an open channel. Forget the fact that he, like everyone else, had no idea that they were sharing that information with the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic magazine in the same chain, because nobody had asked during the course of this, who is this JG? My initial showed up as JG.
And you don't know who that, do you know who that is at this point?
I have no idea. I have no idea who, in other words, who Mike Waltz was looking for. I don't know. He didn't answer that question for me.
The thing about Signal chats is you have to invite people. You have to list the names to create a group. So there was a conscious just adding of you to this group.
Yes.
there's been a lot of effort to respond. I mean, I noted, as I just kind of gave the summary of the piece, you got a response from the National Security Council spokesperson. No.
Oh, yeah, and every agency has been saying, just ask the National Security Council.
Just ask them, punting it to them.
Well, what's going on you could read the tea leaves here. It's Mike Waltz put this group together, not me. Don't ask me, ask him. That's what's going on.
But every one of those individuals should have known that they shouldn't be having these conversations.
Look,
through a
we
signal
all
chat.
like to think that we're really good at digital hygiene, but most of us are not good at digital hygiene. And if there's a lesson here, a lesson for a normal person living in the world, it's know who you're texting with. I mean, it's kind of basic. And by the way, if you're running a major intelligence operation or the Pentagon, maybe you should know how to operate in a digital environment.
Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
He was so sloppy. Not only can you verify the authenticity of the messages, you can verify the accuracy of the messages. No, I didn't mean that kind of sloppy.
We will have the best and brightest.
And you said you haven't seen a breach like this. I mean, you just said that. You've covered.
There have been a lot of breaches. There's been a lot of leaks. There's been a lot of stolen cases of stolen documents. I've never seen a large group of senior-most national security officials just kind of willy-nilly put out a bunch of stuff, without knowing who they're talking to.
So they've been punching you and others to the National Security Council spokesperson statement, which I want to talk about in a second too. But in the last hour, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth reacted to your story after landing for a trip to Hawaii. He didn't initiate the chain, but he had a lot to say on the chain, it seems. Reporters
asked
him.
He had the most sensitive things to say.
He had the most sensitive things to say, including the kind of war detail plans that you didn't even include in your reporting because you didn't want to put operational details in your reporting.
Look, we can say this now. We know American pilots are involved in this operation. That's very, very dangerous work. I found out about this as a civilian 2 hours before the operation launched. The last thing I want, even as a reporter who wants to know about government decision-making, obviously, the last thing I want is to see American lives endangered in any way.
And that's why I'm troubled. Because that came from the writer. And his behavior, his actions reflected that that's the last thing that he wants. And we can't say the same thing about any of the people that they put on that graphic. And that's why I'm troubled. Hey, if you're watching this, it means we did it. We hit the number. No, not that kind of number. But I do want to thank you for allowing me to get to such a momentous milestone of 400,000 subscribers. It has been your shares, your emails, your comments, just watching and supporting the channel that way that has allowed us to get to this point, and it has been invaluable. And I just hope moving forward that I can rise to the level that warrants such an accolade. But in the meantime, we're going to celebrate. You know how we do.
There's nothing wrong.
And what are you going to say to your fans when they ask you some questions about it?
I'm going to say I feel good.
We have a bunch of new merch that we're going to roll out. You can check out all the new stuff at reesewaters.com, which includes a new logo, by the way, so be on the lookout for that. And speaking of merch, I have some members discounts that will be coming your way. So to all of you members, be on the lookout for that. Or if you would like to join and get that discount, you can find a link in the description box to all of my videos. And every time we reach a milestone, we always got to have a party. We got to have a party. So be on the lookout for the members live celebration. I'm going to put a poll out on the community tab as I usually do to see what time works best for you guys. So check that out. In the meantime, I once again want to say thank you. You didn't close the door. You didn't turn off the lights. You decided to come on and go with me and head on over to my place. Love, TKO.